Tell me about some of the kind of craziest self-care suggestions you've ever heard.
Yeah. So I don't know about craziest, but I will say the thing that I see so often, especially on social media, is I think you see a lot with the diet industry. So like the juice cleanses, what are you eating? How are you working out? And it's very sort of regimented, right? There's lots of rules to follow. There's lots of steps. And all of that I find to be sort of fascinating because it gives you the illusion of control, right? You're given the set of instructions, whether it's a specific diet or whether it's some specific workout regimen, and you have lots of rules to follow. And if you're somebody who really wants to do a good job, right? If you're somebody who really likes having that set structure, it can temporarily feel really nice because you're like, okay, like now I have a bunch of rules. I know what to follow. I know what to do. And in the beginning, it can temporarily feel good, but then as you move along, you sort of start to understand that like, oh, like even if I lose 10 pounds, like if that's your goal or whatever, that's actually not necessarily fixing the very real problems in my life. That's not doing anything to help me have hard conversations with my boyfriend who I have a difficult relationship with, or it's not doing anything to really help me navigate the interpersonal dynamics in my family with my own parents, right? So there's sort of like Band-Aid solutions. And it's not that some of them are, kind of anti-science and can be really problematic. And so, for example, this group that I was part of, I found out years and years later that the story inside the group was actually very dark. And I had to grapple with that in my own therapy for years. So there is kind of like this cohort of quote unquote wellness solutions that can be actually potentially dangerous. But I think a lot of the stuff that you see it's not that it's dangerous. It's just that it's not sustainable. It has you spend lots of money and then you end up with a closet full of like bullet journals, or like I say in the book, like I have like tons of Real Simple magazines, like collecting dust in my closet because I always think that I'm going to like organize things and have everything be nice and pretty and tidy. And unfortunately, that's just never going to happen, right? Like you just need to know that that's not going to happen. So it's more that it's sort of deceptive, and it's not actually fixing the problem. And then on top of that, it makes you feel bad. Definitely. Because then you're just spending more money and you're stuck in this cycle of consumerism.
100%. And, as you point out throughout the book, there is so many structures outside of ourselves that make self-care pretty much impossible, or at least taking care of ourselves in a meaningful way really, really difficult. And you talk about Audre Lorde and you talk about bell hooks as well, and because it was a revolution initially by Black women in the 60s, which probably lots of people don't know about self-care. Give us a little bit more about that history of self-care, because I think lots of people probably won't be aware of it.
Yeah, so self-care, like the whole concept, came about originally in the medical community, when psychiatrists and other mental health professionals were using the term for people who were on locked psychiatric units in order to describe the ways that patients could make their own decisions about like what they were eating or whether they were exercising. So it was essentially a way to empower yourself as a patient, even when you were institutionalized. And after that came Audre Lorde, bell hooks, these Black queer activists and thinkers who took the concept of self-care and they applied it to a social justice movement. So we talked a little bit earlier about self-care as self-preservation, essentially the idea that if you are somebody who is in a marginalized group, if you are somebody who is specifically being attacked by the culture that you live in, you need practices to like physically preserve your emotional well-being, your physical well-being. So I think it's really important. I draw parallels in the book multiple times to kind of recognizing and honoring that this entire kind of body of work is coming from Black women, and it's not an accident. that some of the most oppressed people in our culture are the ones who are rising up and helping us see that we, in fact, do have power and agency in our decisions and our choices. Like, it's not an accident that that came from Black women.